Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about an idea for a new type of palette. I mean, it's wishful thinking at this point, but it seems like it'd be really easy to implement, and I think it would make a lot of issues with the game not be quite as bad. So there are two different types of palettes in this scenario. There would be heavy palettes and light palettes. And before I go any further, I just want to make it clear, I don't even remember if this is my own idea anymore. I've talked about this so much on stream for so long that I don't even remember the origins of it. It might have been something I came up with. It might have been something I read someone suggest in chat. I honestly don't remember anymore, but that part doesn't matter. Let's just to be safe, I'm saying I'm not going to take credit for it. But the idea is there would be two different types of palettes. There would be light palettes and heavy palettes. And the light palettes would spawn in those sort of unsafe loops. A perfect example would be, like in Bad and Preschool, surrounding the school, there's those two red car loops. It's just like a car, a pallet, and like a little pile of junk. So you can definitely get a hit on that pallet as a killer without having to kick that pallet. Those are what we know as unsafe pallets. Unsafe pallets are pallets that you do not have to kick to continue pursuing, contrasting to God pallets, which you must kick to continue pursuing the survivor. So basically, in a nutshell, most unsafe pallets would become heavy pallets. Now, heavy pallets take, let's say, I don't know, you can modify these times. Heavy pallets take, a second or two longer to kick. They stun for a second or two longer, and anything that involves perks like that are adjusted by that value. So heavy pallets are going to be heavier. They're going to take longer to break, and they stun you for longer. With this change, there would have to be a limit to Bloodlust. I'd say ideally removing Bloodlust 2 and 3 from the game is a pretty safe, accepted idea in the community. Typically, if you've gotten to Bloodlust 3, it's not that, wow, this is so unfair. It's you're doing something wrong at that point. So I think this would be at a time where they remove the highest tiers of Bloodlust, because then you could cheese every single unsafe palette in the game with Bloodlust, which is just stupid. So ideally, that would occur with that. So you would have these pallets that stun longer. So the idea is now with these unsafe loops, you are rewarded as a survivor for playing it better. Because typically these loops are pretty not great, and especially with Bloodlust, you're going to get hit no matter how well you play those loops at some point, which doesn't really feel great. So, if you actually get a stun with this stun's going to last longer, so you can actually run to a safer area when you're usually just screwed at that pallet. You have to go somewhere else. So getting a stun of those loops is usually the only option you actually have. Additionally, if the killer does not want to play into your mind game and just say, fuck it, I just want to just brute force this, he can still kick the pallet too, but it's going to give you a bit more time to get somewhere a bit safer. So that would make unsafe pallets a bit more actual. It would have more actual gameplay than killers just, bloodlusting around it and not really having to do anything, and survivors would get rewarded a lot more for doing proper play with that pallet. Now, on the flip side, there would be light pallets, and light pallets would replace basically all the instances of God pallets. Like I said, a God pallet is a pallet you have to kick to continue chasing the survivor. So we'll say Shack is the quintessential example of a God pallet. So the Shack pallet would stun for less time now. It would probably stun, instead of 2 seconds, it would stun for, 1 second. And to kick it, it would take, 1.4 seconds instead of 2.6 or something like that. Basically, you would make these pallets guaranteed interrupters of the chase no matter what. But if you're pre-dropping everything, it's not as bad for the killer anymore. So there's a bit more actual gameplay there. I think that would address this issue pretty well. It would create a lot of parity between the different tiles on the map. Like, you can have one of those like just shitty little car loops or something like that. Or like, the one picnic table in Ormond that has like, this is how long the loop is. It would make parity between those loops and the ridiculously strong loops. The ridiculously strong loops would still be stronger because no matter what, you still have to kick those things. It would just be less beneficial to just pre-drop everything like a comp player, which is just frankly boring for everybody. And I think we should move away from that type of gameplay. So I think that would be a lot more interesting for the game. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about that idea. I think that would solve the issues of God pallets, or at least make them a bit better. The game map might actually be a bit playable. And then don't look there. I was trying to body block and we ran next to each other. I felt so bad there. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. It's always fun coming up with these ideas and stuff like that. But I mean, it's also kind of like pointless too, because it's pretty unlikely to ever do something like that. I do think that would be very interesting though. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm so sorry, Ash.